Warp drive active. 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 active. Warp drive active. Docking permission requested. Docking request accepted.
Hey, since we are not on air, hello. Yes, we are on air, by the way. No, you just muted yourself. Stream can hear me when I talk. Fail. Muterall.
All right, since they can only hear you, there's no point in just having you. So,
Hello.
Spod, I dragged you in. Look at that, Killah B's here too with Rich Richmond. Good, we can get to some news right away.
Yeah, I just got here. Hello.
All right, we're on air. People can hear you. Keep that in mind. I'm actually not ready to start. Let me go get my screen. I'm going to have to break here for lunch shortly. But while I do that, Killah B, can you tell me what's going on out there?
Yeah, today was two actual timers, a part of the war. There was two iHubs coming out earlier around the same time, one in period basis, one in Fountain, and both sides formed up quite big. Goons formed up very, very big for the period basis iHub, and then obviously Test and Legacy formed up very big for it as well. We did too, up from in Hopep. We formed Horde and NC Dot, and we decided to, because Test had the southern front covered in period basis, we decided to go after the Fountain iHub, which in it decided not to contest. It was a bit early. It was at 1500, as we formed up at 1530. It was at like 1600. But yeah, it went very well. We managed to kill both iHubs, the one in Fountain and the one in period basis. There was a little bit of a skirmish or a fight down in period base. Actually, I think it was about 70 billion ISK destroyed total, about 25 billion ISK lost by goons, and about 35 billion ISK lost by Test and Legacy and allies. Fireco as well is there. So that's what happened today. But overall, I was very happy because we managed to kill both iHubs. The one in Fountain wasn't a really important iHub. It was just a random iHub in Fountain. But the one in period base was quite a strategic iHub because it was in an entry from another region, so it was quite a strategic kill. Whereas the one in Fountain was kind of just a bonus because it wasn't really an important one.
Yeah, what
And
was
then
that?
we have sorry,
Which system was that in period basis?
Shit. Let me try to find it.
The fighting was taking place in 0-N, but the actual iHub was XZ.
Yes, XZ something. And then the Fountain one was iTech C, which is right next to Fountain Core, right next to the NPC Fountain, or Fountain Core rather. So that, and then right now there's a big form up going on as well. So in addition to those two iHubs, which were both destroyed earlier, there's now an iHub coming out, a very, very important, probably one of the most important iHubs of this war, the D4KU iHub, which is the entry system into Fountain coming from Hopip, which is where PanFam are staging, where we are staging, right? So if we would, and it's quite a big regional gap. So it's strategically very important for us to get that iHub killed, the D4KU1, because that would allow us to set up citadels in D4KU and get our dreads into that system. And from D4KU, you can basically reach all of Fountain with dreads, which would open up very interesting opportunities for us, right? So that's why Init and Goons are both forming very big right now to defend that iHub. Init alone had like 1,200 people in their staging system. That's Initiative plus Initiative Mercenaries and Co, of course, but still, it's basically all Init. So they had 1,200 characters logged in, and then Goons are coming up like another 500 people from Delve. So they're making sure that iHub doesn't die.
When's that supposed to take place?
Well, that is coming. I think it's coming out in like 30 minutes or something like that. but nothing's gonna happen. We're not planning to contest that, so they're just forming up big, kind of show of force. You're not gonna take this iHub, putting a lot of forces there, but yeah, right now, there's not that much we can do.
Oh well, if it's not gonna be contested. It's gonna be neat to see, but not really consequential.
Yeah, the thing is, right, so one thing I found, or I thought was kind of interesting, is that I just explained the strategic importance of that iHub, right? So it makes sense in a way that, it's a very important iHub, but Init did call a CTA for this, and in Init terms, the CTA is one of those events where they're basically asking their members to, take a day off work and make sure they're there no matter what, even if it's not in their time zone, which every alliance has their own names for those kind of ops, right? But for Init, it's CTA. And that's a pretty big commitment on day 4 of a war, right? Like usually you want to make sure that when you ask your people to stay home, when you want to make sure you get like as many people as you can possibly muster, you usually want to, do that for something that actually turns out to be something, because it's important that when you ask your members to stay home and be there for everything, right? You want to make sure that they get something out of it. So I find it kind of interesting that they're pulling this on a very early stage of the war, and it's not that hard to assume that we weren't going to contest the timer. So now they're basically formed up everybody they have to just do nothing for an hour and a half, and that's usually not that good for strategic numbers. But yeah, that's just my opinion.
Well, one of the interesting strategies that these coalitions have against one another is the heat and no heat scenario, which is what Killah is describing. In other words, in order to loosen something that is really, really strong, like metal or something, you need to bend it backwards, bend it forward, bend it backwards, bend it forward, and eventually it gets weaker and weaker and weaker until it breaks. And the same concept goes in military fights in EVE Online, where you make people form up and show up and nothing happens. And then you do that several times, and then players don't show up as much or aren't as likely to show up for the next round, and that's when you attack, and so there's a big event. And you keep going back and forth like that on a group, and that actually weakens their resolve, because they're either losing fights or they're not getting fights when they're able to win. I'm not sure I explained that right, but the part of the metaphor I wanted to get to was that it's not a process of colliding and colliding and colliding, and you don't just fight for fun. You're trying to damage the willpower and the participation of the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that not just with good fights that you win over them, but also the fights that you don't let them win.
Yeah, see, like usually good fights are fun for both sides, because even if in the battle report afterwards, one side lost 100 bill and the other side lost 50 bill, then you still got to brawl, you still got to fight, and most people are quite happy with that, right? Like some FCs may not be happy with that, because we have like, we want to achieve something better, but with members, they're happy because they got to brawl, right? So a lot of times trying to sort of whittle down the morale of the opponent comes down to not the fights, but the stuff that happens around the fights. So one thing that's, for example, very effective, or has proven to be very effective in the past, is that if the alliance feels like they cannot move around in their own space safely anymore, that's usually something. It worked against FCON very well back in 2017 when I was in PL at the time. We basically established a gate camp that would completely shut off the traffic into their staging constellation. But most of their members weren't living in that staging constellation. They lived outside in the space they used to rat or mine. And then whenever there was a fleet announced, they would, half an hour before the fleet, they would fly back into their staging constellation to get to the keep star that they would have all their PvP ships in. But we managed to reinforce the Sino beacon in their staging. We reinforced the jump bridge that was leading to their staging system, and we camped the only gate that was leading into that constellation. So there was no way for their members to get to their PvP ships before the op. We completely camped them out, and that really hit the morale of AFCON very hard because they just couldn't move around in their own space anymore. They weren't able to get from their staging to their ratting or the other way around. And that's really how you can whittle people down.
In other news, yesterday there was a post by Lucy Liu stating that Inner Hell, the wormhole group, is likely to be shutting down or will be shutting down this week. In a post written by Lucy Liu, it reads, 2020 has been merciless. One of the strongest wormhole alliances or groups, Inner Hell, will disband. In the entire history of EVE Online, the Russian community was not often considered strong. Adramolev, the leader of Inner Hell, corrected this situation in the vastness of wormhole space. With his corp, they were considered one of the most dangerous wormhole corporations. Inner Hell's last few years has caused fear amongst all of their enemies, including those in nullsec. At the weekend, the corporation will be dissolved. In a post that was taken from the Inner Hell Discord, Adramolev has requested everybody remove all assets from their wormhole and to contract any doctrine ships to his character, which they will then be reimbursed.
Yeah, that's big.
Afterwards, on Friday and Saturday, there will be some celebrations and fireworks, and on Sunday, all members of Inner Hell will be removed from the corporation, and the corporation will formally dissolve. During a recording which was translated from Russian, the reasons for Inner Hell's disbanding is due to the leadership's burnout over the game and the burdens placed upon them to run Inner Hell and provide content. Frequently, the leadership doing many of the activities, including rolling hulls and holding hull control, alone. They've expressed that they've felt some burnout and they'd have no longer desire to continue playing EVE Online as of current, and as a result they will be dissolving Inner Hell.
Did they explain why? Did they explain why they don't find the current state worth playing right now? I imagine that's what it is.
They have, in the video, they stated that they've defeated all enemies in EVE, and they feel that they've sufficiently won enough victories. But also, he has stated that to do a lot of other wormhole fighting and to provide the content has become a massive burden for him. And to do evictions, it is also an extreme burden on the people who effectively run and operate and provide this kind of content for days on end without sleep to constantly keep an eye on hull control.
And it's only like 3 people that do all that work, right? Something like that.
To my knowledge, there will be Adramolev, Max, and one other person who seemingly does most of the work.
Yeah, I can confirm evictions are hard. I did one. I tried to, form a SIG and then see where we would go around and evict wormholes, and we evicted one wormhole group out of the wormhole, and it was really bad. So I decided not to do it again. It's terrible.
The burden of such a group and to provide the content for the group and keep it alive is too much, and he has. They will be disbanding.
Not only just maintaining hull control of the wormhole as well, one thing that's never realised by the group is the logistics behind it. Because obviously you kill someone's wormhole, you get all of their loot. This could total up to 100 million M3 depending on the size of the group you've just evicted. All of that stuff has to be moved out. Now, wormholes, especially lower class wormholes, have max mass.
They feel that the loss of Inner Hell and their subsequent disbanding and dissolve is a great loss to the wormhole community. They were one of the most powerful groups. They were respected and feared as a sort of boogeyman. And now with one less wormhole group, it's going to be very different now in wormhole space. And they were considered one of the most competent and most capable wormhole groups in terms of both fighting and operation. And they've, whenever they've entered null-sec systems to go after supercarriers and raw cores, they were very often a force to be feared.
Right, but they also wreaked havoc on wormholes, evicting smaller groups, and even when they were evenly matched, they would call in superior numbers by relying on hard knocks and I was going to say razorfish, but that's not them, laserhawks. So they would ensure evictions on groups that were normally left alone because they were participating by putting up fights and creating content and doing that stuff. So essentially these guys, Inner Hell, have defeated all foes, which is fine. But then there's no surprise. They've kind of done what they wanted to do, and they're going to stop. They're going to stop because it's no longer fun for them, clearly.
Well,
but in a sense, they're really victims of their own success.
To do an eviction and to plan things out on the scale of Inner Hell required a lot of work, and I was present in one of their major eviction attempts, and I was one of the people who attempted to break their hull control and succeeded. For me to find out that the entire hull control and the majority of the operation was simply operated by a single person, that's a lot of stress and effort to burden themselves. And it's a shame to see them go, and I wish them well, and I hope that there could be a successor to the might of Inner Hell in wormhole space.
It always sucks when groups leave the game, no matter who they are or what they did. Because at the end of the day, we all want this game to be successful, and people may not have liked them because they were being evicted by them, but at the end of the day, they created content of some kind. And I think that's always just bad if groups like that leave the game for whatever reason, right? So it's the same thing that kind of happened with Skill Yourself last year, when they collectively decided, or when the core of Skill Yourself decided, we don't like the way Eve is in there anymore, we're just collectively quitting the game. That always kind of sucks, right? No matter who they are and who they're with. So yeah, I think it's kind of sad. I'm hoping that at some point, maybe the leaders of Inner Hell will find the courage, or not the courage, the will to play the game again, and hopefully one day they'll come back. Kind of like what happened with Snuff. Snuff was gone, and I wasn't really a big fan of Snuff at all, but I still didn't like the fact that they were gone, and now they're back, and that's cool. I'm hoping that's going to be the same thing with Inner Hell.
It probably will be. They've been around. This is their third iteration. I think Inner Hell even has come and gone a couple times. But Max Dell, their leader, whose alt is the leader of Inner Hell, I think this is his third corporation. It comes and goes, but who knows?
My knowledge, several months ago, we encountered somebody who knew the leadership of Inner Hell, and we found out they were creating a international and English-speaking division, and that would be Exiled from Hell. It's a shame that this wasn't able to work out, because I knew quite a few people who were very interested in being able to at least work with groups like Inner Hell in wormhole space, but were unable to due to the language barrier.
Yeah, I bet a lot of people wanted to work with them. They're pretty fierce.
I believe one of their last major evictions would be the Beyond the Breach eviction, obviously the eviction against TD Sin, Scary Wormhole People, and also Dark Star Syndicate, I believe.
That was actually so much fun. The TDSAN eviction, me being a 0-0 guy, I still enjoyed that so much because we did get involved. And while wormholers always hated when the big, when the big mean 0-0 people get involved in their business, but because for us it's this big it's this uncharted territory, and it was so much fun just going into the wormhole not knowing if we're gonna get out, and having joining that fight. It was pretty amazing, and it's it worked out. We built some relationships with Hard Knocks again doing that, and now Hard Knocks is coming to help us in our war in 0-0, and they're having. I just literally just before I came here, I talked to Loroseco, who's one of the main FCs of Hard Knocks, and I was talking to him, and I was asking him, how are you guys feeling in 0-0? What's going on? He's like, well, I'm flying around my toes as Bifrost. I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's kind of cool. It's kind of fun, you build these relationships and you drag each other into your comfort zone, and you get dragged out of your own comfort zone into some other kind of space. So it's always cool when those interact with each other, I think.
Yeah, that's funny. So Hard Knocks is a part of this nullsec war, and they're a little bit of fish out of water.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of cool because we've had a lot of wormhole groups. Like I said a week ago on the show, we've had a lot of wormhole groups approach us and say, hey, we want to help fight the Imperium, and obviously I have no idea what's happening with wormholes and how they do their logistics. So we kind of got Loroseco on board to help us, and we kind of direct all the wormhole groups that want to help to him, and he kind of coordinates and organizes all the wormhole groups and runs that kind of division of our coalition now, which is really cool. So he's kind of like the wormhole commander, takes all the wormhole forces and runs, like he puts them all in his fleet. He runs those fleets. He makes like one big wormhole people fleet and coordinates with them, makes sure that they have the logistics set up and stuff like that. It's really cool. Probably one of the most fun, like for me, and it's always kind of sounds a bit condescending when you say this to people, but I like EVE is more like a strategy game for me than it is an MMO or something, right? Where you fly a ship. And this, I think, is the most.
The most what? Kilby, I think you got cut off.
Well, on my side, we were offered. My corporation was offered contracts by both sides first, and we evaluated the contracts and the lucrativeness of it, and we decided to make a decision and pick a side. The logistics and our operations will have to remain secret for operational reasons, but a lot of smaller groups are getting involved in this war, and well, people
on which side? Anyone in specific?
Well, depends on which side gave them the most lucrative contract at the time. As of current, we are operating under the contract of Legacy.
One thing I've known with some wormhole groups I'm in contact with is a lot of them just dislike the Imperium because of what Goons did previously by going into wormholes a few years ago and just trying to ruin it. So a lot of them have long-rooted hatred for them for the way they acted then.
Hey, Sully, are you involved? Are you involved in wormholes at all?
Did IDC?
You did, Killah. I haven't been for many years. I was part of Exhale, in the old. So, I've lived in wormholes, and I remember when Goons were mucking around in wormholes. Then they said, "Oh, wormholes are just a numbers game." Just showed up with hundreds of pilots, kind of caused a bit of hatred in the wormhole group. Then,
can I ask when did I cut off?
Yeah, I think we were. Help me out, because I'm doing a number of different things, but I think we were talking about Hard Knocks fighting.
About Hard Knocks leader doing the logistics side for the coalition on wormholers.
Ah, yes, thank you. Okay, cool. I just wasn't sure because suddenly everything was quiet and was like, huh?
I've talked for 10 minutes and realized I was disconnected a long time ago.
Yeah, that would have really made me mad.
I'm interested to see where a lot of these Inner Hell pilots will go once Inner Hell dissolves. The majority of them, from my experience, were exceedingly competent pilots, and they all flew very powerful ships, most in particular Tier 3 cruisers and heavy assault cruisers, which were a staple of Inner Hell's lineup.
Active.
Yeah, I do hope they find a new home because they were a very good foe. I have fought them a couple of times, so I do hope they do get a new place and get settled again because they were a very competent.
Well, with all that said, this is like a tree getting so big and so having such a canopy, right? Such an influence on everything below it that other vegetation didn't have a chance to exist very well. And, you know, it's when a big tree kind of absorbs all the sunlight and everything below it is just dead. But eventually that tree will decay, its roots will get weak, and it'll fall over. And you'll see a whole new growth pattern of all these smaller groups below it.
You always come up with the best metaphors, man. That is incredible.
Definitely the final speech and talk that Adramalev made as a farewell and discussion with his court members. It's words and advice that every wormhole group, big or small, should heed by and listen to. The importance of leadership, content driving, and a shared duty, rather than to focus on and burn out a small group of individuals.
You really need the voice of Morgan Freeman Matterall that would round it up. that would be perfect.
There once was a time when.
Yeah, there is some really good. Actually, let me link this video. I love this one video. It's an video with the Morgan Freeman narrating it in the background. It's amazing.
Well, I'm trying to make EVE Online relatable. So the concepts and nature is my favorite go-to.
Yeah, I'm not making fun of you at all. I thought it was a great analogy. It's just, I don't know, is analogy the right word? The metaphor? I don't know. But, you know, it's great because you always say that kind of stuff. You come up with that. I would have never thought about comparing alliances like trees and the stuff growing below it. I was like, wow, that's actually pretty accurate.
Well, it kind of does. It chokes out the stuff below it. But when that's gone, it's missing, right? It's a big deal. It's gone. It's missing. But there is now an opportunity for new things to rise up. And the decay of the old tree kind of puts nutrients into the soil too. So there's always that aspect of players leaving big orgs, and now you have all this experience filtering into smaller groups.
I hope I'm eager to see where in-house stream Toy Shepherd or Cara Cobre goes to next with her streaming and her YouTube. But it reads here, on Friday there will be some last fireworks of celebration.
Fleets, I think.
Some final fireworks, some fleets, and a final celebration. He has requested everybody show up in Shield Lokis, and it will be against the Keepstar on Friday and Sunday, and afterwards the corporation will dissolve, and we'll see what happens next.
Yeah, by the sounds of it, either they're finishing up an eviction or it maybe is their own Keepstar, who knows. But there is a couple final fights. There's a final buyback program as Inner Hell closes its doors. The leader will probably take a break, maybe move on. But we don't know what the members will do. We should get in touch with them and find out. On the other hand, you have Hard Knocks trying to survive their boredom by, instead of leaving, participating in this huge fight against the Initiative, probably, because that's a real grudge match.
Yeah, they're up and hop up with us. For those that want, it's not a mandatory thing for Hard Knocks at all. Basically, Loroseco wanted to get involved, and he said, "Hey, if you want to tag along, you can." And so far, we've seen, some participation from some dudes, Loro and some of his closer friends in Hard Knocks, and that's very much appreciated. The great thing, one of the, I'm starting to let me just say what I want to say.
Yeah.
The great thing about Fozzysoft is that even 5 people in a campaign like this can have a huge impact, because the way wars are fought now, we figured out how Entoses or how wars are fought with this soft system quite well now. And one of the key aspects, especially in the early phases of the war, is just creating a lot of timers, because we reinforce 10, 15, 20 iHubs in Fountain almost every day, and then we pick and choose which ones we want to go for. And it gives us a great opportunity to just chip away iHub for iHub slowly. It's basically what we did today. Is the prime example. We had 2 iHubs coming out today. The one that we ended up killing, the one earlier at 15 something, completely, strategically unimportant system. But at the end of the day, it's one iHub gone. It's one system down. It's one, the strat index of the system is gone. The ADM of the system is gone. And slowly, by just keeping the timers up, we can slowly do that. It's exactly what we did in Tina with GOTG, and it worked really well. And we're going to do it the same way. And for Entoses, you don't need more than 5 people. 5 people can reinforce 5 systems at a time, and that's big. So that's why it's really cool that Loro decided to help us out. And he's the great thing about wormholers is they're very autistic when it comes to Eve. So that's always good to have people like him on your side.
Yeah, the good thing with them as well is they're used to around the clocks, because obviously if you need to defend your wormhole, it's around the clock. So they are very good at forming at the odd hours when things aren't as defended as they need to be.
I'm really so far. I mean, I saw some talk in the TIS public channel earlier on how this is all just, there was some picture linked of, the 2 boys slapping each other with their hands, kind of thing.
Slap fight.
But I'm really liking where this is going already. We got brawls and skirmishes going on every day so far. We have people out in space doing stuff. At least our side has. I can only talk from the NC POV and Horde, but we have people out doing stuff all the time. Going out with 5 to 10 dudes in bomber fleets, hitting random jump gates and reinforcing stuff, putting pressure on them. And that's cool. I like it. And then we can always choose which ones we want to go big on and, have a huge fight over.
I can say it's the same from the other front as well, Killah B.
So I'm really liking where this is so far. Yeah. I really don't know what people want more. It's a great first week, in my opinion.
Yeah, I haven't heard any complaints. This is everything that we expect from a game like EVE Online. This is what it feels like, or what it felt like years ago, when wars mattered and everybody mattered to that war effort. So it feels definitely like we don't know the ending to this story, and everybody's trying hard to write their own ending, to win. And I think Fozzysoft, this is the first time we're seeing, not the first time we're seeing Fozzysoft at work, but I don't know. I think there's something different about this fight, and I'm not quite sure what it is. Well,
I can probably tell you. So what I would say this war has that not a lot of other. Oh wait, you got nuked? What?
No, I almost got nuked.
Ooh,
what happened?
Yeah, to see it on the stream, half armor.
Oh.
See if I can escape this. Smart bombing battleships. They're always hard. As I prepare for them, but they're always hard. I got an armor repair if I need to.
Where are you traveling?
I'm going to the front.
Oh, okay. I would say that this is.
Let me just point out, the reason I survived that is because I put a rig for thermal damage, because that would look like thermal to me. So those little itty bitty rigs that you put on and holes that you plug up in your damage vulnerabilities, that helps. I'll just dock up and repair. Anyway, sorry, go ahead. You were saying.
So I think that this is the first time that the entire universe is involved in 0-0, and everybody has kind of figured out, at least I'm pretty confident that our side has figured out Fozzysoft really well to this point. I personally learned a lot of stuff, how to fight a big war during the Tina and the GOTG eviction. I know that Test and FRT got a lot of experience from the whole Test FRT war. There was a lot of Entoses there. I think that our side, we have a really deep and good understanding of how to fight a war with this soft mechanic, and I think that's a big deal, right? Because I remember our approach in World War B, for example, was way different. And even after World War B, when we went after CO2 and we went after Test, our approach was basically 180 degrees from this one. So what we did back then was we would nuke one staging citadel after another, drive them out of their space, and do the entire Entosis thing completely uncontested, right? But in a war on this scale, that's not an option. You can't do that if you don't have absolute superiority, which we had against CO2, and we kind of had in World War B, which is why that strategy worked back then. We don't have that now, so we have to play it differently, and we figured out how to play it differently, and it's a completely different approach. Whereas now, instead of avoiding the Entosis until the very end, we start with it, and we play around with it, and we use the way Entosis works to, build up the momentum and the pressure, and that's really cool.
Yeah, it seems like part of its design is meant to make the defenders or the attackers like have choices. And you're creating a lot of different opportunities for yourself, and you're small groups that can do that. You can create the opportunities without having a huge fleet there.
Yeah, that's very important as well. A lot of people still make the mistake where when they want to go out and reinforce a bunch of enemy systems, they ping to their alliance. They post an op. They say, "Hey, we have a fleet at 1900," and then they form a fleet at 1900, and they go out and Entosis a bunch of stuff. But that's really not good, because you don't want to bore your main alliance members and your main line with that kind of stuff, with the reinforcement, because nothing usually happens at the reinforcement. You can do that with a core group of committed people like FCs or support people and stuff, and then you form the alliance when you see the opportunity for an actual fight or for a key objective when the timers come out. And that's also something we did wrong for a very long time. I remember when we went to Pravi back in 2018, I did the same thing. I used to post ops every evening 1800 or something, and we would go out and toast a bunch of shit, and then 2 weeks later nobody would bother to log in anymore because they all got bored, right? When I could have really done all the Entosising with 5 or 6 committed people, and then formed up people when they actually formed up to defend their stuff, then form up our people and go and get the fight. And that's how you have to play it. So I think we learned a lot over the last couple of years, and I think we're very well prepared. And that's why I'm enjoying it this early stage as well, because I found a way to have fun with Fozzysoft, basically, right? And I think that's important.
That's
I've
really
noticed.
good. Really good to hear. Go ahead.
I've noticed that on both sides, old FCs, old legends have seen their return. I've seen Lazarus Telraven being mentioned as returning. So we can see some old lions come out for one final roar and their swan song.
Well, I wouldn't say a final roar or a swan song, because they keep coming back whenever there's blood in the water. But I would also say they don't come back at full strength, right?
No, definitely not. So rather than an old lion, they're more like an old cat at this point.
Yeah.
If they haven't been honing their skills secretly.
There's 2 important things that happened in that regard. Elo got a character into Goons, so Elo can actually FC Goons now, which is a big deal. Mm-hmm. And then also Les did rejoin this corp. I'm a bit hesitant when it comes to that, though, because we did see that in World War B as well, when, for example, Mr. V resubbed for World War B, and there was a huge outcry within the Money Badger Coalition attempts, like, oh my god, V is back, this is going to be such a big problem, they have a competent FC now, blah blah blah, and he ended up doing 1 fleet, and then he went AFK again, right? So yes, it is a big deal. It is a big deal, but it's only a big deal if they actually come back and do run fleets consistently. And that is a big deal, right? Because one of the big advantages that, in my opinion, we have at the moment is that our FC quality on average is higher than the Imperiums. We have a lot more experienced FCs on the side of Legacy and PanFam, and we have a lot more, just a lot more FC talent, I would say, personally. I'm 100% positive that the Imperium will disagree with that, but that's just my personal point of view, and that's probably very biased. But anyways, Laz and Elo are both very good FCs, and if they do actually actively FC for Goons, then yeah, that's actually a big deal, because that would give them two very, very competent USTZ FCs, and that can become a problem. But I'm not really one for, starting to make a fuss over things until they actually become a problem. So for now, let's just wait and see. But if both of them actually do actively run Fleet for Goons, then yeah, that's going to make things harder.
Well, it's certainly going to help their side. You've taken breaks as an FC, and a big FC at that. What's it like coming back after a long break? Do you have to get reacquainted with certain things? Do you have to see how things changed?
So first of all, there's always a phase where you have to like get rid of the rust. I'm one of those dudes. Luckily I don't get that rusty, I would say. But I definitely get rusty as well. And I came back, a couple of weeks ago. I used the end of the Pureblind campaign to get rid of my rust a little bit. I would still say that I have some rust on me that I need to lose, but I'm hoping that will happen soon. So that's always one thing. You just have to get back into, calling targets and anchoring the fleet at the same time. And, if you really take a big break where you disconnect yourself from me, you also have to kind of relearn the meta. But I never really do that. Even if I take breaks, I always stay up to date with what's going on and what, people fly. So I still know what I have to do.
Even when you're gone, you're a little bit different. When you're gone, you're still checking in on things.
Yeah. I still read Discord. I'm one of those dudes that actually, so our FC channel, when I wake up in the morning, I read all the backlogs from all the FC channels that I'm in, right? And that takes up, half an hour of I usually do that when I drink my morning coffee or eat breakfast. Instead of reading newspaper or watching a TV show, I usually have my iPad or my laptop in front of me, and I just scroll through the logs of the night in FC channels, and I read because I really want to know what's happening. I want to be in the loop, and that's why I'm always still very much in touch, even if I'm taking a break.
All that memey garbage sometimes. Do you read right through that? Is there enough?
Yeah, I mean, no, I can just I can just scroll past. Like I got very good at flying over the text and seeing what's important and what's not. Like if USTZ is just having some circle jerk about some shitty meme, I just scroll past it and it's whatever. But I focus on the important stuff. Luckily, Pittsburgh is making it a lot easier for me now because Pittsburgh, a former Goon FC who joined NC Dot recently, he's actually has this great habit of always writing he calls it USTZ AAR. So he always writes up an after action report of what happened during the night and puts that in our FC channel. And that's very convenient because I just wake up and I scroll to his AAR and then I just read the USTZ report from Pitts and I know what happened during the night, right? I'm always up to date. I don't have to scroll through all the shitty memes and stuff. And that's really convenient.
He's terrific. He puts a lot of stuff on TIS too. Oh, it looks like we're hitting into tie-dye here. This is weird. So we're lucky to see the stuff. Karan. So a couple jumps.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You're going towards T4 UK?
Yeah. I'll probably stop
and get some very interesting fun in a minute.
Oh no. Hope it's not I've traveled a long way. I'm gonna take a rest stop here in Hopib, break for a few minutes, and then try to catch whatever armada the Imperium puts up for the defense of the iHub, which will be uncontested, it sounds like.
Yeah, it looks like it, man. There's a lot of stuff forming. I've actually they've been forming up fleets for like an hour and a half now, and they're putting a lot of manpower into this. And we just keep reinforcing and pinging their stuff. I see all these notifications from their stuff getting reinforced. That's insane. Yeah, it's great. It's great to see that we have people out doing stuff 24/7.
As something different, Matt, was the birthday bash monument mentioned earlier?
The monument? No, I didn't know they made a monument.
Yes, it was. I noticed it on Reddit this morning. So they have commemorated the birthday bash that went on in Tundan with a monument.
That's fantastic.
In the voice text channel is a link. If you fancy bringing that up as a break.
Let me grab that.
I'm gonna actually head out. Thank you for listening to my rambling as
always.
usual.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Come back, later on when there's
I
things
will
to talk
be.
about.
I will be.
All right, good. Take care of yourself.
Killah
Thank
giving
you.
you the rundown on the war.
Oh, Billy, good. It's the night shift. Yeah, he did. He got it caught up on at least the northern front.
All the regions, all the iHubs.
Yeah, I did the fountain portion. You could probably do a bit of a southern front update.
Wow. I wasn't there for the XZ fight today, so I can't
All
really
I know is you guys smashed it. So
Yeah, I was there for the X fight, and yeah, it was a very, very tie-dye fight. Nice brawling was going on. I managed to honor one of the FCs of Imperium because I tackled him with my saber and kept under the guns of his fleet. But it was a very tie-dye fight, and they brought in caps, and we just the fire fleet just pulled range and killed some sirens. There wasn't a whole lot of battle. Not a lot was destroyed. It was just a very slow brawl because of tie-dye.
Yeah. And in the end, we were able to take the very first period bases iHub, which is
Huge.
very nice. I mean, the reality is we probably won't hold that iHub, but that's a month without jump ridges. That's a month of low ADMs or an immense amount of work to re-raise the ADMs. It's just a massive little thing, and it definitely shows that the wall of control that they have is definitely not as secure as they would like it to be. Huge win for us.
Yeah, was that expected? That win?
No. No. Like, we were hoping to crack the first period bases iHub in like week 4. Like this is not day 4. So usually there's a significant amount of like probing attacks and wearing them down a little bit, and then you kind of try to ninja one, and like we don't even have most of our caps moved. Like this is just like hilarious, I guess you could say.
If you're in Goon Intel, write that down.
What are they writing down?
They're writing down that you don't have your caps moved there, apparently.
Yeah, we've got a lot. We just haven't got them all.
Like as I say, we're still supposed to be in the build-up phase for another week and a half here. Like it's
Yeah, it's just getting started. Really, people are still arriving. It's
yeah,
it's like a convention, and people are still like leaving home.
A prime example of that was for the Fire Coalition fleet. When we were swarming up, it was like, oh, we need this. We need to do this change. And there was no module needed on the market. We needed a certain module, and there was none of them on the market because the marketeers haven't moved down yet. I haven't been able to move mine stuff down yet.
yeah.
Literally, we had a mad dash at the last minute to try and find 200 plus of a module just so we could change our fit.
All right, so this system you're talking about was XZ TAC SKZ.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at it earlier. Killah B was telling us about it. So the next, we're going to come back to the monument in just a second. I have it ready, but I did want to see the timer. The next one we're going to be looking at will be uncontested, so it won't be a fight. But it's a big showing. I'm just outside the system now, but D4KU TAC 5 in Fountain.
Yeah. They've put together like 2,000 dudes almost.
2,000, wow. Is that everything? That's not everything, is it?
Wow, for Init it is. It's
Yeah,
everything in the kitchen sink.
I think it was forming around 1,200, which is a good showing on their part.
Wow, somebody told me they formed a no-life CTA, so I was like, oh, geez, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, look at how many people jumped in there.
Yeah, it's
It's like
quite
1,300.
yeah. I mean, the reality is it's a good showing. There's no doubt about that one. But like nobody's contesting. So, anytime you call kind of a no life CTA, usually you got to make it worth it, and it's definitely not what we're seeing right here. So.
And yeah, Killah was saying that it's a no lifer, which means like everybody shows up. You have no life except this life. Get over here and do this. And it's kind of early in the war to be doing that. But I can see why they would, right? Because they can't afford to have this thing fall so quickly. That would be a terrible sign for them morale-wise.
It would be a terrible sign for them morale-wise. You're 100% correct. I just don't think they needed to form this hard to do so. Maybe they felt they did, and if that is true, then that's just as bad a sign, in my opinion. And I'm.
So it shows you their state of mind.
Yeah, it's more of a panicked kind of state of mind thing. Listen, I'm trying not to be spinny here. They have a good form up, and they're gonna win the timer, 100%.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a lot of effort.
I think from the opposite side again, similar to Villy, is I think there was a lot more concern on their part, given that there are no timers around it. So at any point, we could have decided.
Yeah, the whole crew can be there.
Yeah, because we have nothing else going on at that time. It is also still in our slightly getting to the late of our prime time as well. The EU side, US are just starting to get up as well. So
yeah,
that's a big concern as well because we have nothing around it. There's nothing for aside from the pen is out timer 23 minutes before. But since the 1600 timer today, we had all this time free to move fleets into position.
Well, I'm looking at Aquarius had a timer.
Probably like a single brave dude again.
And there's
that's their like floodplain stuff, right? They don't care about any of that.
Yeah, they don't care about Aquarius, but Fountain has 3 timers, pretty much around now.
Yeah. They let's be clear here that like when all this stuff got reinforced, they knew that they could lose a whole constellation of important space if they weren't careful. So, they're doing what they can. But
right.
the important thing to remember is like all of this stuff can get reinforced tomorrow, right? You have to be able to find a way to prevent that by winning fights and by managing your people properly more than anything.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier with Killah, that it's you don't want to fatigue them with psychological warfare, either showing up when there's no fight today, for instance, or not showing up when they're really needed in a big fight. Again, you don't want to do that too early. You got to pace your guys out and make sure you're providing fun for them in order to keep them interested.
Yep, I agree with that. It's
but still, it's
tricky.
They're clearly the form up has defended this territory. They don't actually have to fight. The form up was so impressive from them that they get a pass. This thing goes back to repaired status and it's not in danger anymore. But what Killah was also explaining is he's having a great time with, we'll call it Fozzie Sov. It's Aegis Sov. That's when it came out, that expansion, Aegis. That now they're using it in ways to create opportunities rather than it being a cleanup, something you have to do after you have the big fights. So you can create timers, like you can create a ton of timers over a period of days, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Like, as much as, Aegis Sov has a ton of issues, it also does work to a degree. It's a very odd kind of system. There's a variety of problems with it, but as I say, it does come closer to what I think CCP envisioned than perhaps some people like to admit at times.
I see it as a lot more balanced than the old Sov. Old Sov was very one-sided.
Yeah. Like in the old Sov kind of systems, there would be no fights right now. It would be literally, can you reinforce an iHub with, caps? No? Okay, then no timers are made.
Yeah. I remember having to grind down a structure in branch and it going to the wrong person because the wrong super stopped shooting and we had to rep it up and it down again.
The wrong stupid stopped shooting.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was in the CFC at the time, and quite literally, we had to get over a triage Archon with whole reps to rep the structure up of this station because the CEO of the corporation that accidentally got it wouldn't be online for 12 hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
There was some weird mechanics that players had to work around. And I think one of them was if you got the final shot on something, you owned it or something. There was some kind of... Can you explain that mechanic better than I can?
So the old stations that used to put down using an egg and then you used to put things in them, similar to the way a customs office works, they never used to be destroyed. There's only ever conquered. So in the old mechanics, whoever got the final hit on the final 1 HP of that structure, then that corporation owned that station. So whereas you see the faction fortizars today, all of them were conquerable stations. And in this instance, the wrong pilot forgot to pull his drones, at which point he then got the final blow, and we had to then deal with it as a group in repping it back up in order to kill it again, so the right group got hold of it.
Yeah, that's so funny. I remember because you'd be shooting something and then the FC would say, okay, everybody slow down. All right, now everybody stop. Only these guys shoot. To make sure the right people got it.
Yeah, I'd like to say it only happened once during that campaign with the CFC. It did happen a few times. And I say Aegisoft is an improvement over that system. It rightfully said it does have some flaws, but overall it is a good improvement.
On the large formats of the initiative, can they really sustain this? Can they really put all of their people on red alert or condition 0 ready to fight at any moment? That's a lot of stress, and it's not something that people can just simply manage to put themselves on condition to react in such a short duration, especially if it's repeated.
It is very difficult to manage your in terms of in that case, I'll refer to it as the Coalition for Initiative because they have initiative and initiative mercs. It's very difficult to manage those people if you do this for every main timer. These sorts of things. So in the Fire Coalition, we have a max pen CTA kind of thing, but we don't. It's not required to take time off work. It's just if you're online, you need to be involved. For this to be called this early is a worrying sign from the outside because it is a large. It has a large impact on the player base. It has a drain on your capacity to form for the next one. Because imagine the D4 iHub got reinforced in 3 days' time. Would they then do it again for that same iHub in 3 days' time? It gives the attackers a good bargaining point in that we now know if they want to put this much effort into one of these. Okay, so what can we do elsewhere to start causing them the strain of the war on their member base?
Well, yeah. And then that's the victory. That's the angle of victory from Fire Coalition, which you're a part of, or Legacy Coalition, or basically all the groups that are attacking. That, we made you blink. We made you flinch. We made you have to farm up, and your guys are going to be tired out. So that's, from your perspective,
and let's say, like Philly said, it was a beautiful form up. The amount of pilots they've got is very respectable. Even if we did contest the timer, it would be a very big, hard fight. And personally, with the numbers they have in their space, I think they would want it, even if we showed up with a good force to attack them and equal size, just because of the home field advantage they have. So they did very well to form up those numbers. But similar to Philly, I don't see the logic behind them calling this literally a no-life CTA over just a regular, we need you here, given it is on their home field as well.
All right. All right, let's look at the timer board. That takes a while up. I don't know why it's taking time. I think we're about 20 minutes away from that iHub repairing itself and being safe again. We'll be back to check that out live. What I'm going to do now is transition real quick to this Tundun landmark, or Tunadun, and then I'm going to take a break. So we're looking at here, it looks like there is the Birthday Bash memorial. I don't know what the form is going to be. Oh, that is a picture of it. It's just destroyed capital ships and it appears to be... Well, there's a Ragnarok in there, those vertical ones, and probably a Phoenix since that's what Chappie was flying.
Nagelfars, not Ragnaroks.
Oh, those are Nags and... Oh, Nagelfars,
And I
what did I say?
believe Ragnaroks, and I believe on the bottom right of that picture, and that is CCP Convicts Leviathan wreck.
Oh, wow. They wrecked the Leviathan.
And like similar in the original post on the Reddit's comments, there is an object named Chappie's Phoenix wreck.
Good. So they did put the Phoenix in there.
Yeah.
I think there was also a Zenitra that went down. I wonder if they put that in there.
Are you guys watching the CCP stream?
No, actually, let's have a look. Oh, new player experience. I love these guys. Okay, we'll do something. I'll tell you what. I'm going to take a 20-minute break. And what we'll do is send you over to CCP, and then we'll start again a little after that timer is up to have a look at it. But why don't we raid CCP, and then we'll come back later. Didn't realize they had a stream. I mean, I did hear that, but I wasn't sure.
It was pinged in game.
Oh, I heard that ping. Well, really, I should raid Ron because he's probably covering news. But I'm going to send you the CCP, but also Ron USMC. Catch that if you want to see more war coverage. We'll be back in a bit.
definitely the playthrough goals, which is kind of the
All right, coming
post,
back.
the early experience. Achievements are a fantastic way of goal setting, and we have, of course, kind of taken initial steps